Thankfully, episode 6 didn't get censored, and instead it was a 33 minutes long full emotional roller coaster, which on one hand revealed so much, but on the other hand it still ended in such a cruel way, which led me to this video's title as a conclusion, because when Gooseworks once said that we wouldn't believe if she told us who's the closest of going crazy, she was right, because even though Jax has always been a character that we couldn't fully understand, and it seemed like he had even more layers after each episode, but now it seems like he's actually the closest of going crazy. At least this panic attack like scene during the award show highly suggests this. But let's just go through his arc in episode 6. So as we guessed, Jax was thrilled to participate in the shooting adventure, and at first he wanted to team up with Gangle like they usually do, but we could see that when Gangle said that she rather wants to be with Zubul, Jax was sorta disappointed, but mainly because things not going the way he wanted. But once Pomni was sorta forced to be with him and they were in the dorm hall, Jax started explaining his worldview to Pomni, where he said,
"Whether we like it or not, all we are now is a bunch of cartoon characters. So what's the point of pretending we're not?"
And even though he tried to be convincing, we could see eventually that it's not as easy to just forget that once you were a human and you still operate like a human. Jax tried to hold on to this comforting belief that nothing really matters now that he's stuck in a never-ending game as a cartoon rabbit, but he still has his memories and he still remembers everything, like how he was in his human life, what he's scared of and why, and he also remembers the people who he once cared about, because these are not things that you can just shut off when they become a liability. But his rant when he talks about how he is,
"I do everything because it's funny. Because I'm the funny one."
well, he can't even sell this to Pomni, so his whole monologue just feels forced, and it actually shows how deep he's in. And I get it, this is how he tried to stay on the surface, by trying to not let all these emotions affect him, and he basically tries to reduce himself into this character he described, but he just can't, or at least not really. But this next scene was also interesting.
You know, getting close with Pomni. To corrupt her.
And when I watched episode 5, I thought the same, that maybe Jax has this motive to get back to Ragatha personally, because of whatever reason, and that he's using Pomni to manipulate her and to hurt Ragatha. But now it just feels like Jax genuinely enjoyed Pomni's company, both in episode 5 and now in episode 6 as well, right until Pomni pointed it out, because that is when Jax got mad defensive. And I'm pretty sure that this is because the memories of Kaufmo and Ribbit resurfaced, and we know from Ragatha that Jax used to have friends in the circus, but he doesn't anymore, and there has to be a reason for that. And my theory is that Jax is now pushing everyone away by making them hate him or saying how he'd like to shoot everyone, and he doesn't care about anyone is because he's terrified of connecting with someone again, opening up to them, and then either him or the other person abstracting, which would mean losing someone again. And we don't actually know what happened to Kaufmo and Ribbit as of why they abstracted, but Jax said that right before they did, it was really hard to be around them because they were insufferable. And it sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? So what if the real reason why Jax doesn't want to deepen relationships in the circus is because he already knows what losing someone feels like, and now based on episode 6's ending, it seems like Jax is actually getting closer to abstracting. So what if Jax realized it once it started happening to him, like these panic attacks, and who knows what else? And that is why he's keeping his distance from everyone, because he doesn't want to hurt them. Maybe he thinks that it hurts the other circus members less if he acts like a jerk and they never become friends, than them actually becoming friends and then losing a friend like he did with Kaufmo and Ribbit. It sounds kind of weird, I know, because we're talking about Jax, but he genuinely seems like a deep and heavily misunderstood character, where people also kind of categorized him as he himself said, like this character archetype. But what if we are missing the point with that? This episode again confirmed that Jax is not heartless, and instead he's heavily scarred and depressed, and instead of sharing these intimate feelings with anyone, he just represses them. But we know and could see that is only so much that people can repress, and eventually things are gonna come out one way or another. And as for Jax, it seems like he won't really able to open up, or at least not as we initially thought, because this episode was literally his episode and he didn't tell his backstory or anything like that, but we still managed to learn a lot about him based on his actions, and at this point it does seem like he won't get a happy ending. Like, I don't know, maybe it's possible that he can get saved, but if my theory is right and he actually started feeling weird in episode 1 and had only gotten worse since then maybe that means that he's eventually going to abstract. Maybe not as soon as the next episode, but down the line. Although his actions throughout this whole episode were extremely weird and he just seems so detached in certain scenes, and if he's telling the truth here...
You don't even know what people are like before they abstract. They are not pleasant to be around. Like at all!
Then maybe this is what he meant. And also where Pomni asks Jax what would he do if Pomni abstracted the next day, and Jax said,
I'd move on and probably forget about you.
Maybe he actually said this because this is what he wants Pomni to do when he abstracts, which actually seems to be really close. Even though he wants to keep up this image that he's actually in control and he acts the way he does because he enjoys messing with the others, it just doesn't feel right. Maybe he wants to be this way and he wants to be this simple, just like a cartoon character, which was written in a certain way, but he's not. He was a human and he still has his human soul, which makes him way more than just coded pixels. When he said,
There's nothing more to me. So please, just stop looking.
I think this was crucial, and even though it probably hurt when he said this, it had to be done, because Jax probably believes that this is way less painful than actually opening up to someone and embrace his real side, which has emotions, which is hurt, and which is depressed to the point where he doesn't care about himself anymore. And most likely this is why Ragatha also triggers him, because Ragatha usually talks about emotions and she's an emotion-driven person. And also when she pointed out that he's corrupting Pomni, you could see that Jax had an interesting reaction. Maybe it could also be possible that Jax felt responsible for the abstraction of Ribbit and Kaufmo. And when Ragatha said that now he's also corrupting Pomni, it made him spiral. Because just think about it, Jax is basically living in his own nightmare where every connection he makes just becomes another person he's gonna lose. He lost Kaufmo and Ribbit, and now he's stuck in this pattern where he thinks that getting close to people is basically putting them in danger. When we see him looking at those pictures in the hallway, there's this longing there. But then he just shakes it off, like he just needs to forget it and move on, which were literally his own words to Pomni. And so this breakdown scene might actually be Jax trying to protect Pomni in the most messed up way possible. Like in his mind, he's not just having a meltdown, he's actually trying to save her. He genuinely thinks that by pushing her away and embracing this villain role, he's preventing her from ending up like Kaufmo and Ribbit. It's like depression at its worst, where you convince yourself that staying away from people is somehow helping them. And what makes this even worse is that we don't even know if it was actually his fault that they abstracted. It could just be that he's carrying all this guilt based on nothing more than what other people said, especially Ragatha's comment about him corrupting Pomni. But here's where it gets interesting, because if anyone is gonna be able to get through to Jax, it's probably gonna be Kinger. We've seen him help other characters before, and he's dealt with his own stuff about loss and memory, so maybe he's the only one who actually gets what Jax is going through. The question is if Kinger can reach him before Jax completely loses it, because honestly, Jax might be too cooked at this point. Like his whole way of dealing with things has become so twisted that even when Pomni tried to be his friend, he couldn't handle it without thinking it was gonna hurt her. And that's not just being a jerk anymore, that's being completely broken by everything that's happened. But let me know what you think about episode 6 and if Jax is really going to abstract down in the comments. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.